This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Still waiting in line? Again? That's time you'll never get back. Save time and money with Stamps.com. Over 4 million businesses have skipped the line with Stamps.com. Join them to save up to 90% off carrier rates from your computer or phone right now. Print postage for certified mail, registered mail, and packages in seconds. Then schedule a pickup right from your home or office. For a limited time, go to Stamps.com and use code PODCAST for a free welcome gift. Taxes and fees apply.
A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 75.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curren and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren, and today we talk about another brick in the wall, self-doubt. That little demon that sits on your shoulder, John, and just eats away at you, man. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Tom. You know, self-doubt, I think it's a natural feeling that we all have from time to time. Doubting our actions, doubting our thoughts, doubting how people we think people think about us. It is really the foundations of who we are as a person. And David Brinkley had said something that I think is really pertinent, and he said that a successful person is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that others throw at him or her. You know, and if you really think about that, we have a choice when people throw bricks at us, when they say things about us that we don't necessarily like. We actually have a choice of what we do with them. I'm talking with both of my daughters right now, actually, about this, because they're going through middle school and high school, where there are mean girls or bullies that they're trying to deal with. And what I'm trying to teach them is that, we can't control what other people do, but we can control how we respond and what we do with what others do.
John, that quote reminds me of the saying of when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Yeah. But you're so right about that time with your daughter's age. I can remember us going through that age, and we had bullies, and those things stick with you sometimes. In fact, sometimes on Facebook, people will friend request me, and they're people that they were a bully, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I really want to be friends with this person, but they've changed. They, over the years, but those memories of them have not changed, and my feelings towards them are still, I have animosity against them. And those feelings stick with you because it's such a fragile age that it gets like imprinted on you, and it becomes like part of your software. And I think that's where a lot of those things, and also your family is notorious for putting these things on you, saying, what's the saying? Be realistic. Sometimes when you're telling someone your dream, and a parent might say, "Oh, be realistic. That could never happen," and that's not true. But you put it in your mind, especially if it comes from an authority figure, that, hey, you're right. And that becomes part of those voices that's sitting on your shoulder and whispering in your ear when you have self-doubt.
Yeah, it reminds me of a time when I was really struggling in school, and at the University of Florida, they had a time limit. You could only complete so many hours without declaring a major. And in order to declare a major, that meant that you had to be accepted into a specific school in that, at a specific college at the university. So here I was, at one point I had almost been kicked out of school for having such a low grade point average. I wasn't applying myself, was barely going to classes. And it took me a little while to kind of adjust to life in school and learn how to succeed. And I had been making great progress in doing that, and raised up my grade point average. But still, my history had been holding me back. The cumulative GPA wasn't as high as it should be, and I was limited to where I could go. So I remember this teacher, and not a teacher, an advisor, as I was trying to get into college. And this was like my last ditch, my last hope that I could get into this school, and had a very low requirement for GPA. And it was something I was really interested in doing. And I remember her saying, looking at my transcript and saying, "There's no way in hell I'm going to let you in school." And I remember looking at her straight in the eye, and I said, "You just watch me, lady." And I walked out of the room. And I did end up getting into that college. I ended up on the presidential honor roll. I really turned my life around. And after I had done that, I was also working my way through school, and I was in the hospital. And this lady came out of me. That's really strange. This lady came up to me. This lady came up to me, and I didn't recognize her because half of her face was bandaged. Her eye was bandaged. Her cheek, was bandaged. And it was that lady. It was the advisor.
Would you throw acid on her or something, like Two-Face out of the Batman comic?
No, it wasn't that. It was cancer.
Oh.
She had cancer, and she lost her eye. She lost part of her cheek, and she was going through therapy at the time. So I didn't even recognize her. But you know what? She recognized me, and she explained who she was, and she said, I remember you coming into my office and pleading your case, and I knew that if I just pushed the right button, that you would do great things. And I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. I know that it was tough, but you have really come far, and I'm proud of you. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, that's a good story, man.
Yeah, and it was really, it's one of those cases to where not everyone is so nice as to when they try to push your buttons. Some people are just pushing your buttons because they're mean people, and they have their own problems that they're trying to deal with, and they're taking that out on you. But this advisor really had good intentions with me, and obviously, her telling me that I couldn't do something made me want to do that even more and show her that I could do it. And I did do it. So I going back to David Brinkley's quote, I was able to take those bricks that she was throwing at me and put that down and lay that down for a very strong foundation.
All right, John. So let me give you another scenario. So you have mean people that maybe put you down on purpose because they don't want you to see you get ahead. And then you had a situation where you were in where it's someone that's trying to push your buttons to make you something more than you are, almost like a drill sergeant, right? But then there's the other people that don't realize that they're keeping you down. We've talked about how you hang around with, maybe the 5 most people that you hang around with, you become very similar to them. Well, if you're in that environment where you're around people that are not doing well or don't believe that they can change, then that can go through osmosis to you. There's a fable. I don't know if you ever heard this one. And it's about Heinrich the Eagle. I just gave him that name, by the way. So this eagle, I guess he had fallen out of his nest, right, when he was little, and he couldn't fly yet. And a man had found him. And the man was like, "Oh, wow, look at this chicken." So he brought him over to the Farmer Brown, and Farmer Brown goes, "That's no chicken." He goes, "No, yes, it's a special chicken." He goes, "Okay." So he raised him with the other chickens. So this eagle believed that he was a chicken. He walked around and pecking the ground and eating chicken feed. And one day he looked up and he saw an eagle flying. And he was like, "Wow, what kind of creature is that?" And one of the other chickens looked over him to him and goes, "Oh, that's an eagle. But don't worry, you'll never be able to fly like that." And the chicken went back to, the eagle went back to being like a chicken, and he died like a chicken, never knowing that he was an eagle. And that's from he was growing up in that environment. And the same thing can be true with people.
Yeah, it's self-doubt is really it's about self-esteem and what others think of you, as you know, as well as what you think about yourself. And I think that it's natural to question yourself. But I actually see that as I see that can be used in a very positive way, to question your own actions and to be full of, or to have self-doubt. From my own experience, before I met my wife, I almost married the wrong woman. And as I was in that relationship, I began to doubt that was the right decision for me. And in fact, I got 2 weeks before the wedding, and then I decided to cancel it. And a lot of people have told me, that I have big gazungas or big testicles for doing that. And the reason why they say that is because most people will just soldier on down a path that they know is bad for them. Something that, instead of speaking up and saying, whoa, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong path. They're too scared to speak up and to leave that path. That's most people. And, I would venture to say, if you look at the divorce rate in our country, there are a lot of people like that. They get onto a path, they might be very discontent, and even before they get married, they decide to say the vows, they decide to have children, they just decide, oh well, there's nothing I can do about it, and
they convince themselves that maybe this is the right person for me. Maybe what if I don't find anyone else, if I leave them, and maybe this is the best I can do, and they settle. And you're right, John. That happens to a lot of people. And I think you're right. I think you hit a nail on the head. I think that's probably one of the reasons we see a high divorce rate.
Yeah, and I think there's a healthy level of self-doubt. And because that's humility, right? Is recognizing that you're not perfect, that you do make mistakes, and that we're always told, don't think too much of yourself. Don't grow this big head and be so proud of yourself, because you're nothing, is what other people will say. And like you said, that comes from your surroundings. The people that are around you, people that even love and care about you, can make you feel very bad about yourself. We really should give ourselves credit where credit is due. That's not to be braggadocious, to brag about yourself, or to say, I'm so great, look at me, I'm so great. It's there's a healthy way to approach that, to say, you know what, I'm worthy of everything that I have. I earned it, I worked for it. That's part of who you are, and you should be proud of who you are. A certain level of that is healthy.
I have a friend, John, that she, every time she gets a new job, she has a little self-doubt and always feeling like, how did they give me this position? How am I making this amount of income? Do they really know who I am? And they, even though they have this track record of always stepping up to the challenge and doing exceptionally well, they think that I'm not qualified for this job. And I think we all get this. I know I get this.
Yeah.
And it's called imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're doing a position or a job that you're not really qualified for. You don't think that you're capable of doing. But I tell you, most of the world and probably most of the positions in life everyone has that little thought nagging in the back of their mind. You think like when, whoever gets elected for the president of the United States, if they back in their mind, and they might think, man, do I really deserve this? Is this, am I going to be able to do what I've promised to do? I mean, everyone's going to have those nagging fears in the back of their mind.
You think they're really going to think that?
Well, I don't know. These two candidates, I guess it takes a certain level. I guess it takes a certain kind of person to run for president to begin with. You're a politician, and politicians are a little overconfident maybe sometimes. But no, there has to be those times that, or at least when they get into office and they're sitting in there and they have some really challenging things to handle, and they probably sit there and like, man, the weight of the world is literally in my hands, and my decision can change the course of history. That's a big responsibility.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. And no matter how they feel about getting into office, I'm sure the weight of that office is just so immense that it does humble you as being in that position.
Well, you see them, man. If they don't have white hair when they go in, they come out with white hair. They look like they've aged like 20 years within 4 to 8 years.
And that's exactly the point that I was just going to make, Tom, is that you're absolutely right. They go in looking young and vibrant, and then all of a sudden, boom, they do look like they've aged 10 years.
There was a funny meme going around when Bernie Sanders was running, and it was showing like all the presidents, like Obama before he went in, and Reagan before he went in, and what everyone looks like when they come out, and Clinton, and they show they show before, they show Bernie, and then they show a picture from Creepshow. I remember the guy that hosted Creepshow, and that's Bernie Sanders if he would have became president.
That's so funny. We got so off track with that, but it's hilarious. I was thinking they were going to show Yoda. Anyhow, I think it's a natural feeling also that if you're going into a new experience, just like a new job, to have some self-doubt, because there's uncertainty there. You doing something that you've never done before. You're inexperienced. Of course, you're going to have some self-doubt there. Because of your uncertainty and inexperience, and I think some of that is healthy. Where it becomes unhealthy is when you tell yourself that you can't do it when you haven't even tried, and not giving yourself the chance or the opportunity to learn. Obviously, if you get hired into a new position, somebody. The person who hired you felt that you could handle the job. You were given that position for a reason, and whether you doubt yourself or not, somebody else did believe in you enough to give you that new role.
So, John, some steps I think that people, at least that come to mind for me, that can help you with self-doubt. With my background in martial arts, one of the biggest parts of martial arts is meditation, and that's part of the reason why you meditate, because you have this movie that's playing in your mind over and over again, and you want to get rid of that movie. And that's they say that when you're meditating and when you finally reach a certain heightened sense of awareness, that it's almost like the bottom of a bucket of water dropping out, and it just, your mind kind of clears, and that movie stops playing over and over, because we're the director of that movie. And it's also had input by all the people that we've already talked about, our parents, our friends, our coworkers, our bullies, whatever it was that set those images and put them inside your mind that you keep on playing over and over and over. And often it's the bad things that we keep playing over and over and over again. Meditation helps clear that up.
I had the same thought too, and I think you gave a brilliant example, Tom, is that we need to examine our feelings and question their validity. It also goes, that also plays out in recognizing and acknowledging your doubts. It's okay to have doubts. Your mind and those thoughts are trying to trigger something. They're trying to raise a red flag, trying to give you something to think about. But you have a choice to either act upon on those doubts, maybe do nothing, or not question their validity, but just accepting them or not accepting them. So, I think coming to terms with that and understanding why you feel a certain way and see what's driving that can also help you in dealing with self-doubt. Meditation, I always think about clearing your mind, but I think it also helps. It helps you kind of take a step back from your day-to-day life and kind of clear your thoughts and free your mind from thinking about things too much, so that you can gain new perspective, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you've hit it the nail on the head. I mean, that is what it is. It's to find peace and to, like you said, clear your mind, so you don't have what they call the monkey mind that continues to make bad decisions. Yeah. Yeah. But something else you had said reminds me of a quote from Confucius. And it was a real short one where he said, "He who says he can and he who says he can't, both are usually right."
Yeah. You know what? I agree. I think sometimes we're so close to the problem and so close to our issues that we aren't able to pull ourselves back and see the bigger picture. And if you're trying to change your life in some way, and you're going down this path kind of in the dark, kind of feeling your way, it's okay to take a step back and take a look around, figure out where you are and what you're facing, and then change your direction and choose your path a little bit differently. Recognizing where you are is probably the first step you need to take when you're lost, right?
Absolutely.
Get your bearings.
One of the things I know that you're a big proponent on is you're always talking about getting it out of your head and putting it on a piece of paper. And that comes with a lot of things, but it also comes with self-doubt. Possibly keeping a journal. If you keep a realistic record of what you're doing, you can look back and say, you know what, I've faced challenges like this before, and this is how I handled it, and I overcame it, and I'm okay. I didn't die. There was nothing, earth-shaking that this decision that I had to make or what have you affected me. So it's a great way, and it also helps you gain clarity by figuring out what it is that is troubling you and why you have these feelings.
Yeah, Tom, I absolutely agree with you. Writing down your own feelings, and actually going back in time and looking at what you wrote down, can really show you how far you've come in the process. We don't give ourselves enough credit most of the time to recognize how much we've changed. And keeping a diary and going back every once in a while and rereading what you wrote and it is going to help you revisit how you felt at that time and make you see the difference and see it'll help you see how far you've come along. But that's also the reason why reading history is so important, is because history has a tendency to repeat itself, and humans we all learn from each other, and gaining perspective from people who have had similar experiences, it might not give you the complete step-by-step 10 easy steps to get from A to B, because what worked for them may not work for you, but it is going to spark ideas and help you get further down that path. The last point I wanted to make and touch upon something that you said, Tom, was about, I've been through this experience before, and I made it through. And you're absolutely right. The way we've approached problems in the past can help us move forward in the future. However, just because it worked one way the last time you went through it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work the same way this time, because there are different factors involved. It may or may not work. for you. You know, of course, we're going to try what worked before, but don't get discouraged and full of self-doubt because of, what you did before isn't working. It's a new situation.
And sometimes you hold these thoughts in your head of like, I'm clumsy. People see me and I feel like I got, big feet and I trip over myself. I've had friends that have this feeling and think, oh, they always like downplay themselves, going, "Oh, I can never do that because I'm like a bull in a china shop." But those are things that you can change. Those are things that you've been imprinted in, labels that have been associated to you. Sometimes you can sharpen your skills. I was listening to Tim Ferriss, and he was talking about how he was never good at basketball. He always, dribbled like a caveman. It was what his coach used to say. And he had some friends that were really into the Lakers. The dog had like a Lakers sweater. They were watching, and he was never really into basketball because he wasn't good at playing basketball. And one of his other friends had recommended some how to play basketball video, saying this guy is like the best. Like 40% of the people that watch this, and like people that already play basketball, 40% of them improve their shooting and they just become better basketball players. So he's like, you know what? I really don't have an interest in playing basketball, but I would like to watch it with my friends. So he got the DVD or whatever it was, how to play better basketball, and he learned enough. So he actually started enjoying watching basketball because it got rid of that negative connotation he had from when he was a child.
We always talk about coaches on this show, and you're absolutely right. We can learn from other people, and I'm a big proponent of teaching yourself how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And
the Benjamin Franklin way.
Yeah, and honestly, I know that holds me back. I started playing bass guitar back in high school, and I'm okay. But I started teaching myself how to play guitar, and I can make a lot of noise, and I have a lot of fun making a lot of noise. But I know that I'm holding myself back just because I'm too damn cheap to go take some lessons. And I know that if I would just put myself in that position of taking a few lessons, that I could improve my guitar playing, exponentially.
And what a good coach can do, John, is they can give you feedback. That's the one thing that you lack
Right.
when you do try to teach yourself, because I think you could teach yourself almost anything, but you lack the feedback. I know in jiu-jitsu, I could sit there and watch YouTube and try to do all these moves, but if you don't have someone giving you the feedback, or you don't actually roll and spar with someone else, you can't actually see what can go wrong. So you do need that input from someone else that has an objective mind and is not trying to, hurt you in any way. They're trying to help you, and it's more a constructive criticism.
Yeah, I think about like weightlifting and how important it is to use the correct form when you're weightlifting. But if you don't have someone pointing out to say, hey, you know what? You're holding your arms, the wrong way, or you're coming down too far when you're doing a dip. You're going to hurt your knees. Your knees aren't supposed to go past your feet when you do a dip. And, you're using incorrect form. Without someone pointing that out, chances are you're going to keep doing the same mistake over and over. And it's hard to pull yourself back. When you get into a habit of using incorrect form, it's hard to break that. And sometimes it feels like you're going backwards rather than going forwards. But what you don't realize is that once you pull yourself back and you hold yourself to doing the correct form, you're going to be able to make progress by leaps and bounds, as compared with hitting a wall with where you're going to be if you're doing it wrong. It's having that extra that different perspective, and having someone kind of look at you critically and saying, hey, do it this way, try it that way, which can really help you. You're the one who has to do the work. They can't do that. They can only make suggestions, but you can either choose to listen to them and put that into action, or you can choose to ignore it. It's up to you.
John, weightlifting is a great place to learn life lessons. It really is. And I think it's helped both of us through our lives.
Yep.
And I know you can feel that, like when you have a heavy weight on you and you're ready to bench press it. If your mind is not all there and you're like, I'm going to get this today, you're not going to get it. You know, if it's on the threshold, if it's something, you know, obviously not something crazy that you can't physically do, but if there's something that a max rep that you've done before and you're not all there behind it, you're not going to get it. And I've had those days where just you don't feel like working out and you go to do it and you can't get it. But other days where you're listening to some jamming tunes and you got the adrenaline pumping and it's no problems, I'll go for another one. And it really is your mind that it connects with your body and allows you to do those things.
Well, that's the same. I mean, the military teaches you also to deal with pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And try to change your mindset in regards to pain.
The Marines say pain is only weakness leaving your body.
Yeah, and you can, you know, so many of us civilians, we have some pain, and it just totally stops us in our tracks. Whereas there are other people who, say the Marines, for instance, who could be shot up and still continue on and soldier on. You know, it doesn't stop them. It keeps them going. And I think that it's been proven that you can train yourself to deal with your pain in a different way.
John, that's what made the samurai so effective. The samurai, before they went into any battle, already said, I'm dead. They've already said, I'm dead. So if you they don't care if you're going to cut their arm off, their head off. They don't care, so that they lose that fear. We've had episodes on fear and how powerful that is. But fear is part of self-doubt. And that is how they were become such exceptional warriors, because they were able to relax more when they fought, so thereby they could perform better.
You know what, Tommy? I was thinking about, you know, about our weightlifting experiences. And I mean, that is a great example to where you're about to bench press and you've actually failed before you even try because you're telling yourself, I can't do it. And that's a great example. But how many other times in your life have you told yourself, I can't do this before you've even tried? I mean, you've failed before you even know if you could do it or not. That's self-doubt is what kills you, because if you don't try, you don't know. And sometimes we try and we fail, but that failure was more in our minds than physically you could. You know, my nephew, he's in college right now. He's going to Princeton, and he's on their baseball team, and he's had some pain in his elbow, and he's been going to different doctors, and they've been talking about, you know, possible Tommy John surgery, and looking at, you know, doing MRIs of his elbow, and going through physical training and so forth. And he's, you know, this latest doctor has told him, well, you don't need surgery. You need to be able to push through the pain. And he thinks he's at about, you know, 75 or 80%. But think about this. If you've ever injured yourself, there's a tendency to kind of hold back, right? Because you don't want to, if you've injured yourself and you've been nursing yourself back to health, you don't want to push too hard and re-injure yourself. And part of getting past that is pushing through the pain and keep on going. And that's a process that really only you can govern. You know, you can either tell yourself, no, I'm not going to do this, and stop yourself because you're starting to feel a little bit of pain. Or you can learn how to deal with that and continue to push yourself and continue to push that pain away until, you know, you're back at 100%.
Yeah, well, we're not saying go crazy, because John, I've done something stupid when it comes to pain like that. One time I was out in my front yard, and my wife, you know, she does CrossFit and jiu-jitsu and, you know, very fit, and we decided to have a quick little sprint, a little race. I was not warmed up. I wasn't ready for it, but I was like, I'm not going to let her beat me, right? So I ran as fast as I could, and guess what? I won, because I used my overconfidence to say, I'm just going to push through it. as soon as I stopped, all of a sudden I felt my Achilles tendons on fire. And to this day, they still hurt every morning when I wake up. And it was that sprint that triggered it. Now if I would have eased into sprinting and done it the correct way, over months and time of, running at my body weight for that amount of time or that speed, it would have been okay. But by trying to do it right off the bat and just pushing through the pain, that was not a good idea. So we don't advocate, doing something stupid like I did. But if it's mental pain, and sometimes physical pain, yes, there's absolutely no problem with pushing through it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had the same experience, not with trying to beat my wife in a race. In fact, we should have named this episode "The Time Tom's Wife Beat His Ass." Or so, I don't know, but I digress. But there's been plenty of times to where, like, I was doing tricep extensions, and I could feel a little bit of twinge. I could feel a little bit of weakness in my muscle. But instead of, saying, "Whoa, wait a minute, that I've had enough," I've pushed myself even harder, and then you injure yourself, which puts you out of the game. So yeah, I definitely am not advocating going hog wild and pushing pain, not being aware of your body and not taking notice, because you can really push yourself and cause yourself a lot more pain and totally take yourself out of the game through that. So I'm not saying I agree with you. I agree with you.
The friendly competition in weightlifting and bodybuilding and all those circles. I remember the guys that I used to train with. They were such assholes. They'd look at you and go, "Hey, is that a new shirt?" It's like, yeah, I think it might be, and they go, "Well, you have a string hanging from it." And then they go, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's your arm." I think Arnold Schwarzenegger had, inspired that whole type of, jabbing at each other and weight training.
That's so funny. I have a great quote, and it's a little bit long, but it's really powerful. So should I just do that now?
Yeah, do it now, and we can probably wrap this up and maybe end it with your quote.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. It's the quote is by Marianne Williamson, and she says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure about you. We're all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I think that my family and I went up into the mountains yesterday to do some apple picking, and my son is going to be 6 next month, and he's so funny. He's telling everybody his name, telling people how old he is, and people around him just he's so funny, and he's such a little character that everyone seems to smile around him. And some people were just they always say what a great age that is to be, and I think what, that's just who he is. And a lot of us start out that way as kids. We have this light that just shines out from us and makes other people smile. But as we grow older, that light seems to dim because of the experiences that we have and because of people around us telling us we suck or we can't do this, or, your arms are string beans. It's we let what other people say manifest itself inside of us, and we build we build ourselves based on that self-doubt rather than recognizing how awesome we are. I think I think self-doubt, I guess we should wrap it up, but self-doubt, you can either see it for what it's worth and use it to power yourself through difficult situations and prove other people wrong, or you can believe what they say and just take it as fact, whether it's true or not true. And we hope that doesn't hold you back, because we all want to change in positive ways.
I seek strength not to be greater than others, but to fight my greatest enemy, the doubts within myself. PC Cast. That's my ending quote, John.
That's awesome.
As always, I'm Tom Stewart. Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out swiftkickinatheass.com. Sign up for our free membership site. There, John will have plenty of stuff in there that he's created, such as his simple spending plan. Maybe you can get out of $90,000 in debt like he did. John, thanks for hanging.
Yeah, thanks.
Peace.
More than that, buddy.
See you.
See you later. Peace, everybody.